Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it's difficult when you're getting paid a lot of money to be there. Like the expectation is to perform, like, and that's part of being a professional athlete. And you know, I accept it. Like it's true. Like there's gonna be good times and there's gonna be bad times. You can't always complain. And I sometimes see that in professional sport. Like like there's guys out there that maybe they're big on social media and they're loving it when things are going well. But as soon as things aren't going well, they're the first ones to complain about the people saying bad things about them or things like that. So I can't. I've never been on social media for that reason because I don't want to, be a part of that. But I suppose, yeah, there's lots that goes on behind the scenes that, like in anything really. But in terms of sport, like I had, lots of like, there's a side of the game that I've kind of had like this almost like a dirty little secret where I've like no one's ever really known, but I've dealt with like OCD throughout like my whole playing career pretty much. There's a lot and it's not that I want sympathy from it, that it's just to show that there is like another side. And for me, I wouldn't be telling people because it doesn't bother me that people can say, oh, something that you had something wrong during your playing career. It's more just the fact that I want people to be aware that it's okay it's all right to have something behind the scenes that's going on, that you can still make it, that there's still pressures, and you can get through them, and it's not sort of abnormal to have something that doesn't go perfectly. Like it's not, and I say like a normal career isn't like all highs. There are lows, and I had my fair share of them as well. Like I've never met one player that didn't have a low through their career. So there's definitely a side to it, but at the same time, I accept that when you're being paid a lot of money, you gotta perform. When you're at that high level, you're expected to perform, and criticism comes when you don't. Like that's just the reality of sport. And I don't, I think that's what makes, especially in New Zealand, that's what makes the All Blacks so successful, is the high standards that that are upheld. That's why it pushed me to practice more, to perform, to be able to perform at the highest level under pressure. So I think there's a good part of it, but at the same time, there's stuff that goes on behind the scenes that players have to deal with, just like in real life. Like everyone they'll go to work, but they might have big problems at home, or someone's died, or that's why that's what keeps me grounded. Like I had OCD in rugby, but yet there's so many more terrible things that go on to other people. Like I'm not comparing my story as any worse than someone else's, but like I just want to start talking more about it for myself, because if there's kids and stuff that are dealing with problems in sport or at home or whatever, that you can still make it and get through it.
Yeah. And what stage of your career did you begin to realise, well, this OCD was actually more than just nerves or tension? Like at what stage did you think, God, this has got to stop, or I've got to do something about it? Or was it something that you're in denial about for a long time?
I think it had kind of always been there, like growing up a little bit, but I had one moment, because OCD can, like a lot of people have like compulsions where they like do things, or it might be like something they do before a match, like to make them feel, like sort of ease their anxiety a little bit. But I like a superstition, or like it's almost like a superstition in a way, but mine sort of became really like, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then I just basically, there was like one time where I really it just consumed my whole life, where I basically just couldn't, I couldn't do anything without having some sort of compulsive thing, whether it be turning on a light like so many times, or locking a door, tying my shoelaces. Like, think of anything that you have to do in a day. I would have had to have done it like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, like whatever numbers I created in my head, I'd have to do it that many times. And then there was probably one moment where it just got it completely out of hand, where I was trying to lock a door a certain way, and then I walked away, like, just because I'd been there for like 15, 20 minutes trying to lock it, and it just wasn't feeling right. Because basically you're trying to ease your anxiety. So when I have a thought in my head, which I know is stupid, but at the same time, you'll ease the anxiety of that thought by doing something compulsive. So I'd have a bad thought, like maybe like I'm going to play really badly on Saturday if you don't lock the door correctly. So I'd be like, I didn't want to walk away from the door not locking it correctly, because I'd think that I'd play badly. So I'd lock the door until it felt right, until I did it 3, 6, 9, 12, multiples of 3. You start creating this weird system in your head. And then I basically walked away from the door and I didn't do it correctly. But then at the same time, I'm saying to myself, that is so stupid. That has no effect on the game. But at the same time, I'm like, part of me is like, no, you lock the door, because you're going to play badly. And I've just got like this split decision in my head where I can't move. So I literally stood there for like 30 minutes, and like no one was around, and I was just like bawling my eyes out because I couldn't move, because I couldn't work out which one was more important. Like, was it more important to just not care? But then I was so scared if I cared that I would play badly. And that's kind of this fight that I had within myself all the time. And I thought it was just rugby. Like, a lot of it basically all started with rugby, and the pressures that I felt from performing.
These external pressures, or pressures you put on yourself?
I think, pressures I put on myself. But I felt like there were pressures from outside too, because I always felt like, everyone expected me to be a good rugby player, and people wanted me to, thought I was going to be an All Black because of my dad. There was probably a whole lot of things together, but I think mainly it was myself, my pressures I put on myself. I didn't want to let my teammates down. I didn't want to do this. I had to be perfect. There was all these things swirling around, and then it's almost like OCD was like the way to cope with it. Because that's basically what it is. It's like a coping mechanism for worry, fear, anxiety, like whatever you call it. And that's just how it came out. It's actually, I didn't really realize, but it's super common. I kind of like looked into it a little bit.
Yeah.
It's just super common. And I kind of know all of this. Like, I'm not someone that doesn't understand what I'm doing was stupid. It was just really, I was so scared that if I didn't lock that door correctly, that I would play badly.
Yeah.
I've kind of always been a believer, like, that you become what you think about. And I've kind of like, I've kind of had that mentality, like, if you really want something, you'll get it. But at the same time, my mind played tricks on me, because I was thinking, well, if that's the case, then maybe the opposite's the case. Yeah. So if you think about bad things, then they'll happen. So to ease that anxiety, I would like do these compulsive things, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then basically my whole life was just like, I'd wake up in the morning, like sleep was the only time that I could relax. And then I'd wake up and I'd just be like exhausted, because I'm just like, I've got to get out of bed. I've got to brush my teeth the perfect way. I've got everything I did in the whole day would be like full of compulsions. And then I'd have to go and train. And then I was exhausted, because I was just like, my mind has just been thinking about like this fear. I suppose it's like a fear of failure, or fear of like.
How long did this go on for?
Probably like, I remember it sort of started maybe around 17, 18, and then like I still have to like kind of deal with it. I feel like I'm like through it now, but maybe only like a few, like probably still have to deal with it now a little bit, but I've kind of read that it's not something that's really easy to go away. It's kind of just like someone on your shoulder just like chirping away a little bad negative thoughts, and then the other side of you is like, well, to ease that, I'm going to have to do something. It's just this weird thing. But I've only really started like to manage it in the last few years. I'm basically like through it now, but I've only really just every now and again, like it'll still pop up. Like there'll be something where it'll be like, you're going to play badly or something bad's going to happen. Because then I thought at one stage I thought it was just rugby, and then basically the rugby season would finish and I'd be like, oh, thank God, like I can just relax now. And then it became like everything.
Right,
so then it would be like, oh, if you don't do this, the plane's going to crash, or like something bad's going to happen to someone in your family, I know it was so stupid, but it just doesn't matter because you're like, oh, well, you kind of like fool yourself into thinking like, oh, well, rather just do it, because, if you don't and something bad happens, then, and you trick yourself, it sounds so ridiculous, but your mind just plays tricks on you basically. And it kind of like was worse because like I was playing like really good rugby at a lot of the time when my life was just falling apart, and I just had no way to cope, and but I was playing well, so I was like, oh man, it's because I'm doing all this stuff. So it was kind of like feeding this like cycle of like compulsions that I couldn't really get out of, and I was too scared to like try anything else, so I was just like, I'll just deal with it.
And do you think that this was brought on from rugby, or do you think it's more your personality, and whatever you had done you would have had this OCD, like if you just had a regular day-to-day job, or do you think the rugby is what caused it and it sort of then went across into your everyday life?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I probably think maybe it would have been anything potentially, but I think rugby being like a high pressure, like you're in the spotlight, I think that made everything worse. Like everything was just like I would go to games and I'd just be like I was a mess before, like the day before a game, the night before a game, the day of the game was horrific. Like I just couldn't. I like literally my wife would just have to like one time before a game, my wife had to take me. She's just like, just get in the car and let's just go out to the beach, and she went into the water. We were both fully clothed, and she just took me into the water, and I just went swimming, just in the water, just like sitting in the ocean, like fully clothed, because I just couldn't. I was like having like this massive attack of like fear. I'm going to play badly. I can't handle like all of this. Like before games, I'd be like locking myself in the bathroom, just wishing that I could just stay in there. Like that, I just didn't want to like deal with the game. So yeah, it's hard to know. I think the pressure made it way worse. During that time, I was like, I wish I wasn't a rugby player, like, because then I wouldn't have to deal with this. Like I'd be driving on a bus. Even now, I sort of like think about it, but like, I'll be driving on a bus wishing that I was the people walking around, that I wasn't the guy on the bus.
And was there ever a time where you thought, no matter how much money or the fame that comes with it, was there ever a time when you thought, I just can't do this, this is me done? Or... Yeah,
but I just felt so trapped. I was like, I'm come so far, I can't get out now. Like, how do I get out? How do I, Tom Taylor, the son of Warwick Taylor, all of a sudden, like, I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, there's going to be like, the news is going to be like, how could he quit? Like, he's just had it all on a platter. It's all there for him. He's finally made it and he's just quit. Yeah. Like, I was like, that is so impossible. I can't do that. What would my family say? What would my friends say? What would everyone, my teammates, what would they think of me? Yeah. Like, how could I like give up like being a professional rugby player? Yeah. Like, it seems weird, but at the time I hated my life. Like, I was just like, I really struggled. Like, probably the whole time I was in New Zealand was just an absolute mess. Yeah. Like, I don't even know, like, I had, if it wasn't for my wife to just guide me through those years, like, I was really like struggling big time. Yeah.
And was there like a feeling of sort of disbelief or guilt that you had those feelings that you would achieve what you wanted? You'd been in the All Blacks and you're playing at the highest level possible, and
all anyone
how's
wants
this possible,
and all anyone wants to be is an All Black and a Crusader.
Yeah.
And I was like living the dream of everyone, and yet I didn't. And then I felt guilty because I felt these things of like, I don't want to be any of this. I just want to walk away.
Yeah.
And then I kind of just felt trapped, so I just kept going, and then it kind of got worse. And then it kind of my wife was a massive help. I had, I still had a supportive family. Like my mum and dad knew what was going on. But day to day, like they didn't know like what I was dealing with. Only my wife really knew how bad it got, and how she was like basically just getting me out the door to go to the games because I was just a mess. Yeah. I just couldn't I was really struggling. And then no one knew. Like the coaches didn't know. Like no one even knew that I was doing these. Because like within a game, everyone's got superstitions and stuff. Like I'm sure maybe some people at times would have seen me doing stuff to these little compulsive things, like putting my socks on a perfect way, or maybe I was putting my socks on like 5 times, but no one would really know. Yeah. So I kind of like, it was like the secret that only really my wife knew about how bad it was. And then I kind of played it down to my mum and dad how bad it was. Yeah. And then had a couple of mental skills people that I told. And they were helpful, but it was mainly my wife was just supporting me through the whole, the worst of it.
Yeah, and even trying to keep it to yourself's hard enough, I guess, or probably a coping mechanism, but at the same time you're keeping all that within, and it's probably building the pressure and tension and magnifying it.
It was just in New Zealand, it was really like a cycle of get through the game. And what was weird is that I still was playing decent rugby. I actually felt like rugby was my only relief, where I got on the field and the game goes so fast that you actually can't do any compulsive stuff within the game because you can't, your mind is just, it's happening too fast. You can't think, you're only thinking about rugby. So my mind was distracted. I could just play. Yeah. So that was actually okay. But there was only one time in the game. Goal kicking was the only time where sometimes I'd have compulsive feelings, and one game in particular in France, we had a kick to win the match, and I was kicking 100% in the match, so everything was feeling good. Had a couple of little compulsive things like putting the ball on the tee, which wasn't really a superstition or a routine, because I was counting how many times I had to do it. But it was just minimal, I could deal with that in a game. But then where there was a kick to win the game, the full-time siren went, and the kick wasn't even it was my easiest kick of the night. It was basically in front, kind of 30 meters out, slightly to the right. And but in France you had there was a rule that they don't have in New Zealand, but I think they've got it now. You had a minute to kick. As soon as the penalty's been awarded, you had a minute. Yeah. Which isn't really long. By the time you've said you want to kick, and then the tee's got to come out, you might have 45 seconds. And then so I'm sitting there, and then it just my OCD just started going crazy. I just couldn't get the ball on the tee perfectly, because I was if you don't put this on the tee correctly, you're gonna miss the kick, you're gonna lose the game. So all I'm thinking is, you're gonna lose the game, you're gonna miss the kick. Put it on 3, 6, 9, whatever I was thinking at the time was gonna ease that feeling. But because there was just so much pressure, it got to I finally put the ball down, and then I walked back, and there was 5 seconds left. And so, and everyone, all my team was screaming at me, kick the ball. And and if you didn't kick the ball before 0 in France, the kick it's not counted. It's not it's a minute and you got a minute 30 or a minute 10. It was soon as and there's a clock in the corners of every stadium that has a kicker. It's a kicking clock. Yeah. So it was and it was 5 seconds, and I literally kicked it. It was 3, 2, and my teammates are screaming at me to kick the kick, or it's over, and I kicked it, and they were all no one knew what I was dealing with, but I couldn't get the ball to just feel right on the tee. And you know, everyone's after game was like laughing and sort of like,
So you made the kick.
yeah, I made the kick. Like, but at the time, like I was just devastated. Like I just was like, this is another low. Like I'm back to ground zero. And I was at that stage, I was like, was feeling pretty confident about how I was coping. I was better. In France, I was a lot more, the balance of life helped me really, get sort out like a little bit of my OCD. I was a lot calmer, not so like intense. But yeah, like that moment, that was another bad moment for me. Like, and then after the game, like everyone's celebrating, and I was just devastated. And I was trying to act like I was just like calm under pressure, but like meantime in my head, I was just like, and I just got on the bus, and I just remember like, I got home. We had like a long bus trip home, and I was just like devastated the whole bus trip. Everyone's celebrating, and I'm just sitting there. I've like won the game for the team, and I just can't believe that I've just like, it was just a massive low. And I got home and I just was like, just in tears. I can't handle this. Like, yeah, but no one knows, you know, like no one knew that I was even dealing with that. They just thought it was a funny moment we almost like lost.
Do you think, obviously you've had an amazing career up to now, do you think that held you back at all with reaching even higher heights, or are you quite content that you reached the pinnacle of where you could as a player, even with the OCD?
Well, it's hard to know, like, but I don't really. I still feel like as a player, I wish that I didn't have that fear of failing. I feel like that was my biggest problem. Was like I was always so worried about failing that I didn't try things, that I didn't, give things a go because I was always scared to try, and I had this massive problem of not being good enough. Like I had like a lot of issues where my confidence was low, that I wish I had have dealt with a lot of that stuff, but I don't never like regret. I did think I did really well to cope through that stuff, and I feel like that all I really think about now is that I got through something that was really tough, really like didn't give up. I didn't like. I'm still playing now, still having to like sometimes deal with little things because I'm like, I feel like I'm, beating what was potentially like trying to destroy me. So I'm super like happy with where my career has ended up. Like I'm super proud and like, but I definitely couldn't have done it alone. Like I've been helped a lot by my wife to just, get me through and figure out like how I can try and, stop all of this stuff. And really a lot of it came down to just like not caring what everyone thinks. And it's such a like simple thing, but like I was so ingrained in me growing up, like to care what other people think. And I was so like worried about, pleasing everybody else that, like now I go out there and I don't have that fear. Like I just go, well, if my OCD comes up and I have this thing on my shoulder saying you're going to play badly, well, I'm like, oh well, I'm going to play badly. I'd rather be the guy that played badly and didn't do OCD than have OCD and try and cope that way. So that's how I like rationalize it in my head. I'm just like, well, I'm going to play badly then. So be it. I'm like proud of myself that I can be like, no one else will know that even if I play badly, but yeah, that's kind of, it seems so obvious and so stupid, but that's, that's the way I've sort of dealt with it. And I suppose like, everyone deals with stuff, which is quite, I suppose back to your original question, like before games, this guy's throwing up, these guys like, literally like you just hear the sound of people vomiting in the toilet and you're like, it kind of just like becomes normal, but like everyone else is dealing with stuff and you have no idea what it is. And you have no idea, like my OCD is nothing on what like, other people might have in sport, and then that might be nothing on what other people are dealing with in real life. So I'm not here to compare and be like, oh, mine was worse or poor me, like give me sympathy. It's just like everyone's got their own stuff, and And my wife always like had this cool little saying, like if everyone had their problems and put them in a pile, you'd go and grab your problem first, because like, yeah, my OCD's, yeah, as bad as it sounds to me, and maybe to some people, it's not a person dying. It's not like, you know, losing a family member, or like someone having cancer, or, you know, I just had a problem with my sport, you know, like I struggled a little bit. It's not, and it doesn't define me. I just think it's part of growing up. Like, you know, I just had to deal with, you know, some tough times like everyone does, and growing up, and, you know, becoming a man, like you have to deal with issues and get through them. And I look back now and it's made me who I am today, and I'm super proud of who I am today.
Yeah.
So I don't really wish it never happened to me. I think it was really good that it happened to me.
Yeah, it's interesting, like, really eye-opening hearing that, because I think as top-level sportsmen, we put you on a pedestal. I know prior to meeting you, when I knew I was going to meet you, I obviously looked up your career and I was like, wow, you know, and you create an image of what you're going to be like. You know, he must have an ego. He must be this, and this. But actually meeting you're just like any of my mates, like grounded, easy to talk to, and that kind of thing. And obviously talking about that, as you said, everyone does have their issues and the things that they have to overcome. And what's really interesting for me is that in talking today and talking to you previously, our views on going back to sports X at the level we coach are very much aligned in terms of how we value the enjoyment above anything else, and we both agree that, you know, everything beyond that comes from that primary stage of sport where they grow to enjoy it, they grow the social skills and develop all sorts of bits and pieces that come with it. And it's funny that we've both had completely different journeys to get to mid-30s, but we're very much in the same position with our views on lots of parts of life. So yeah, from my point of view, really, really interesting to hear that. And I think for anyone watching this, it'll be, wow, they're not just these robots we think they are, and they have injuries, they have different feelings, they have self-doubt, they have to work incredibly hard to get and maintain their levels to sustain a career, and they have coaches that won't talk to them, and all of the things you've talked about is just like, wow, it is completely different to what people may see. And obviously you've got those massive highs with playing for the All Blacks and playing in front of crowds, but to see the full picture is really, really amazing. And from Toulon, you obviously joined Po, which is a big team in France, and since then you've been playing in Japan. And how have the last few years been, obviously learning to deal with the OCD and having that more work-life balance, essentially? How have the last few years of your career been?
Yeah, like I feel like I made some really big strides in my time in Po. I had a bit of a whirlwind year at Toulon, and then I had 4 years at Po, and I feel like, yeah, that kicking example was, you know, at my time at Po, but that was my first year, and then actually my second, third and fourth years I started to really make some breakthroughs, not feel get a bit of confidence back, and start to sort of feel like the OCD was sort of on the way out. Mm-hmm. I ended up, I think what I actually ended up playing really well. I kind of just gave up with the whole OCD thing. I was like, oh, well, I'm just going to play bad. And then I ended up, playing some really good rugby, and it kind of was like, oh, now I can play decent rugby without having to do all of that stuff. So I kind of finally got this confirmation that it was what I knew all along, which was a load of crap. But
but what was the point where you realised that? Was there a turning point where you're like, actually, this is just a game, and it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of life if I miss a kick or lose a game?
I think I just grew up. I can't really put it any other way. After so long, this was probably almost 8 years of really struggling. I was really just I just almost gave up. Mm-hmm. And was like, well, I'm just going to play badly then. I can't keep living like this. It was almost a bit like that. A bit a mentality where I was like, I just don't care about what other people think anymore. But I mean, that's just what happens when you grow up. You kind of realize all those little things don't mean as much. I started having kids around that time, and I was like, man, if I'm a mess, how am I going to be a role model for my kid if I can't even like play a rugby game without, you know, getting all worked up over a sport?
Yeah.
And you just kind of like have a better perspective. I really just believe I just grew up. I just finally just, you know, through a lot of help as well, you know, like, but like, yeah, just grew up, started to, I think the balance helped. Like I really enjoyed the time outside of rugby, living an awesome life in France, and then just got more and more confident with.
Yeah. And did you start to enjoy playing more?
Yeah, loved it. Like just really enjoyed the playing side, which was like completely foreign for me to enjoy playing rugby.
Yeah.
It wasn't all perfect, but I was just like, yeah, majority of the rugby I really enjoyed over there. It just sort of gave me like a new lease on life. Mm-hmm. I was a better person outside of the game too. I just, yeah, much better all around. Like just everything. I just felt like all this weight was lifted off me.
Yeah.
And I could just be myself. I didn't have to like, you know, care about other people and their thoughts that they probably never had about me. But it just felt like all this weight was lifted off me, and I could just like
be myself. Maturity and experience, and then you made the move to Japan. Was that just to start making your way back to New Zealand and your roots, or?
Yeah, in a way, like COVID kind of happened, and there was like some issues around being in France and that, and we kind of ended up back in Australia for a bit. And I thought that might be the end of my career, and then I got an opportunity to play in Japan. And was like, wow, it's just could be another adventure, like with our family. And I just didn't want to like pass up opportunities, because once you finish rugby, it's over. And you know, we're so lucky to like, you know, play a sport for a living, that I just didn't want to regret finishing that early, especially with like another great opportunity. So yeah, I just was like, let's go again for another 2 years. It turned into 3, and then I was like, this is the end. And then another opportunity's come up with a different team, and now I'm just like, I feel like the Japanese part of rugby, I've actually probably been my best like rugby in terms of just like I'm so much more relaxed. I don't really get worked up at all now. Like the games don't really bother me at all. I can just live my life and just play the game. Like I'm really enjoying like just being a normal professional now. I don't have all the stuff on the side to deal with. I don't have any OCD. I just play and enjoy it. And I've really like just learned to love and appreciate being a sportsman now. Because for years I don't think I was ungrateful. I appreciated what I had, but I just didn't. I hated my life because of some stuff that was going on. But now I really appreciate, you know, the life I have, and I feel pretty lucky that I get to, you know, go to training and like go to the gym. Like a lot of people have to go to work and then go to the gym, and it's a mundane, pretty like tiring life. Like, and I just go and train in the sun for an hour or two, and then go home and hang out with my family. And like I'm very lucky, and I feel like I'm appreciating for the last few years. I'm super grateful and just lucky that, you know, I want to make the most of playing while I still can.
Yeah, that's a nice place to be in, isn't it? Because obviously, like you said, you're living out lots of people's dreams, and to be able to be in a position now where you can actually enjoy the day-to-day rather than going through everything you went through. So that would be nice, particularly when you finish, I guess, to look back and go, well, I actually truly enjoyed rugby for that period of time.
And that's the way I want to finish, because rugby is a great sport, and it's given me like so much. It's really like been my whole life, you know, and while there were really hard times in it, like, you know, it's made me who I am today, and I wouldn't change, you know, what I had to deal with. It's kind of strange looking back, you know, that I hated it so much, and I wanted it to finish. Like I remember even like trying to quit before I'd even made the Crusaders. Like I was like, no, I'm done. Like, and then I got talked out of it, and then I almost would have changed my whole life. But I just think that's just growing up, really. Like when I look at it now as like a dad, and you know, it's just, you know, everyone has their own problems, and that's part of like your 20s, and everyone has issues and transitions, and you're leaving school and you're starting a job, and everyone has their own stuff, and it's just part of growing up. It's not all smooth sailing. You got to like, you know, get through some tough times, but that makes like the times after, you know, much better.
Yeah,
so
definitely. And we obviously met around a year ago, and you were sort of semi-convinced that would be your last year, and you just signed a new 2-year contract. So what's left in the legs for Tom Taylor?
Yeah, well, hopefully I can make it through a couple more years. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to a new team, so it's almost like a new challenge again. I'm actually pretty excited about it. It's a new place in Japan that we can like explore, and I just want to make the most of because you never know when your last game's going to be. Like, so I've almost had that mentality, just be like, you know, really grateful for every season, every game. Like, I'm really like enjoying that stuff. Because I know that I'm really lucky to live this life, and I just want to like hopefully come full circle and start enjoying myself and make the most of this rugby life.
Yeah, that's great. And body-wise, you're feeling good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Feeling pretty good. Yeah.
Did you find that when you're approaching 30s, everyone sort of started to question age and how long you got left?
Yeah, everyone, like, when you hit 30, like, they always split the group into like the 30s and under, and like 29s and under. But I'm in the old group now. I'm going grey. I'm like struggling. In my mind, I feel like I'm 28, but I'm like definitely like in the old group now. But
I reckon every year since I was probably 27, 28, every end you go around again next year. I'm like, only in my 20s still, and
I know.
Obviously I'm getting on now,
but these days, like, there's some guys that are still hanging around to like 40 now, and they look in good nick. So as long as you stay in good shape, you can actually play a lot longer now. I think like the old like days of like, I think recovery and the way people are living now is a lot better, and it can keep you playing for a lot longer. So
definitely. But, a lot of it's mindset and having that desire to want to do it and stay in shape as well. Isn't it?
For sure. So, but it's such a nice, like, to be able to stay in, like, to be paid to stay in shape and perform and play rugby. It's like, there's a lot of motivation there to do that stuff. It's awesome. So just got to make the most of it.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And as we've discussed, you'll obviously monitoring the rugby programs from afar and continue developing the programs. And when you do finally finish, it'll be great to see you on the pitch with the kids. Yeah,
I can't wait to, mate. I'll be every time we get long off seasons, thankfully, in Japan, so I'll always be back to check in and see how everyone's going and watch the kids. Getting in amongst it, because hopefully we can build the rugby, especially the rugby game here in Australia. It's always a little bit low down the list, but hopefully we can bump it up a couple of notches and really start to grow the game and the passion for the game here.
Yeah, I guess just to summarise, for young players coming into sport and trying to navigate their way through it, what would be the biggest bit of advice you'd give them?
Probably just like enjoy what you're doing. If you really want to take it somewhere, have a vision. I'm a big believer you got to have a goal in mind if you want to achieve it. But really it comes down to just working hard. Like if I think back in my career, it's just, I had a vision when I was super young and I worked really hard at it, but I loved working hard. It wasn't like a hard thing for me to do. I remember like being on summer holidays and like, while everyone was at the beach, like in the morning I'd just, I'd go for like a hard hill run because I was like, I had a goal in mind. And for me, it was like, that's what I want to do. Like if I'm going to get to this goal, I've got to do like some hard stuff. Yeah. But I also love doing that, So just having fun and working hard. But it's easy to work hard when you're having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Come hand in hand. But no, that's great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in and great to have you part of us.
Yeah, thanks. I'm looking forward to it.